I was the oldest of three kids in my family. I had a brother 2 years younger and a sister 4 years younger. The times were hard. It was difficult for even adults to find a job. My father had a good job, but my father had an alcoholic problem. As the oldest kid, it was kind of on to me to help after my mother divorced him to help the family. So I missed a lot of school. I never graduated from school, from high school. I was out trying to find a job, and whatever was available I would do. They used to call it pin setters in the bowling alley. You ever heard of them? That was a hectic job. You had to really be careful because you didn't have a guy bowl down there while you're down there picking the pins up. But whatever was available, because of the times of the Depression, that you couldn't even find a job to mow a lawn because adults were out there doing all that work, you know. I can remember where I was when the war started. I was down at a neighbor's house. Somebody hollered about Japan doing this or something, and Pearl Harbor. The war had started, you know. I can remember when they opened the aircraft factories, and I can remember the city lighting up and people hitchhiking to get out here to the California coast so they could get a job. My mother got a job as Edna the Riveter and Consolidated building the B-24 bombers. So there was plenty of work for people. Suddenly, the doors to the bank opened. My birthday was October the 9th, and I turned 16 when the war started. So the next year, when I was 17, is when I joined the Navy. I left on my birthday. I waved to my mom goodbye. Here I was in sunny Southern California. They had a boot camp in San Diego. They sent me to Farragut, Idaho. They built a new boot camp up there, and I didn't know what snow was. I went to bed one night on the second floor, and I got up in the morning, you couldn't see out the window. They had the worst snowstorms there they'd had in 50 years. Getting used to the changes in your life, you know, at 17. In World War II, you had a teenage Navy. A difficult time to find enough recruits, you know. The changes were pretty well magnified to the changes you had made from what you were just recently. We would go down to the theater and watch the newsreels, you know, and at 16 you're kind of immature. But you see the bombing and this, that, and it didn't look like a war. It looked like something exciting you wanted to be part of. Of course, when you start getting into the war, you realize that this isn't what I thought.
When did you first realize that?
The first bombing. I was on a anti-aircraft gun. I was what they called a hot shellman. You put the cartridge in, the shell, and then when you fire, that empty shell casing comes out and you grab it, throw it out the hole in the bottom of the turret. The first one come right outside and got the side of my head. It burnt the heck out of my ear. So I just let it come out and land on the floor and kick it in the hole. About that long and about that big around. The 5-inch, what they call a 5-inch 38 gun. Projectile was a 5-inch round. We had 2 closed turrets on the bow and 2 open on the aft end of the ship. They were the biggest guns we had on the ship. The ship that I was in that I commissioned in April of 1943, the Chincoteague AVP-24, the small seaplane tender. We went out in our first engagement and we got the hell blown out of us. See, we got bombed and attacked in 2 days 11 times, and one of the bombs penetrated into the engine room and killed everybody in the engine rooms. We had to be towed back, and it was in Mare Island Navy Yard. It was 6 months. We were 6 months being repaired. They had this Marine fighter group out there, Pappy Boynton. They came to our rescue. We were sitting dead in the water, and we had another ship there that was keeping us from sinking. And late in the afternoon, and somebody hollered, "Look, here comes the Japanese again." And we were sitting ducks, you know, there was nothing to do. And everybody started hollering and screaming. And about that time, somebody said, "Look over here." And here come the Marine pilots down attacking the Japanese bombers. We had a crew of close to 300. It was that time of day as the remaining Japanese bombers started disappearing in the sunset into the clouds. You could see here come a trail of smoke and fire, and you knew what that was. They were getting shot down, and they drove the Japanese off. When I came back to the States and I started looking for documents and history things, I got in contact with one of the pilots that lived in Santa Rosa. That I talked to him on numerous occasions. It's been an eventful journey. And it's something that affected me all my life. Nowadays they call it post-traumatic stress syndrome. They didn't have anything like that. I got a little wild after that. It's just something that's in the root of your mind somewhere that you can't get rid of it.
Is it still there today?
Oh yeah, but it's in a controlled state right now. You know, when you're at that age, you're not very mature. You're still in the growing phase of your life. Our crew is made up of a lot of people that were, not a lot of people, but some people that were aboard their ships that were sunk, and the Hornet and some of the other ships. They had a little experience in that, and they were older. They were adjusted to that. Us kids out there, it was rough on us. Most of the people that came to our reunions had never sat down and talked to family. Or some of them have, you know, some of them stayed in the service, but the majority of them, the kids weren't interested, and they didn't talk to the kids about it. My kids, they didn't know anything about it, which is sad. Well, I don't know. They were interested in their own lives too, you know. I didn't sit down and try to force them to listen to me. Like I said, I kind of closed the door to those times. I think a lot of the people that were in my time done the same thing. That was an episode that you had to move away from because you have a whole different life ahead of you. No war, you know. Pulled in a log, there was 4 or 5 cars ahead of us. There was a guy in a van in front of me. And he came back and we were yakking. He says, "Were you in the service?" I said, "Yeah, I was in the Navy." "Me too." One thing led to another, you know, and he said, "Well, I was in this group in the Marshall Islands, Roy Namor." And I said, "I can't believe it. We were in the same outfit, Casu 20. And all these things are coming back to my mind, you know, because I hadn't talked to anybody. And he says, "Have you ever been to a reunion?" And I said, "No." I said, "I haven't talked to anybody about the service since I've been out." And he said, "Yeah, they're having a reunion in Atlanta." So he gave me all the information, so my mind started going back to the guys I knew, and I wondered where they were, and it just started a whole new trend in my life. I went to Atlanta to the reunion, then I went to another one, and I was hooked. I was going to look for my friend Eddie, and he was from the Chicago area. That's the guy that's on my book cover.
Foster?
Yeah. I found him, and we conversed, and him and his wife flew out to Arizona. We had a reunion there, and that was the last time I saw him. there's so many things that I've been involved with my life, you know, and it just, the whole thing has been a great venture. I can't really come up and say one thing is my favorite. My musical career was one thing I enjoyed. That's will always be in the back of my mind. And all of the people that I've met, going to the reunions. The last one I went to, we drove to Portland. Just talking to the people, you know. And when you're young and you're working, you know, those stories are in the back of your mind. And then when you get together as retirees, they all come out.